Today, we will learn about interviews and focus groups and the difference between them. Why use interviews? Because we need to describe the participant's perspective on a certain phenomenon, especially when the phenomenon we are interested in is a sensitive topic. So participants are less likely to talk about it in front of a group. So in that case, focus group is not a good idea. For example, when we want to do research on drug use, sexual behavior, personal health, it's better to use in-depth personal interviews. Interview is also an effective way to collect information about things hidden behind observations or hidden from observations, such as opinions, past experiences, motivations, values. Those things are usually hidden from observation, and we need to ask participants so that they can articulate them. Interviews are usually conducted on a one-on-one basis, lasting from 30 minutes to 1 hour. Interviewers usually ask questions and record participants' answers with notes, audio, and video. Both verbal and non-verbal cues should be recorded during the interview. Interviews are an unstructured way of obtaining information. What does it mean? It means that researchers will prepare a list of questions in advance before the interview, but during the interview process, the researcher may come up with new questions based on the participants' responses. The first most important job for an interviewer is to listen. That helps build rapport with your participant and help gain information from the participant. The second most important thing is to follow up, to ask follow-up questions. Ask participants to tell you more, to elaborate, to explain what they just said. You can feedback what you hear to the interviewee by rephrasing or paraphrasing to confirm that your interpretation is correct. Interviews has several advantages. It is good for getting information about a sensitive topic. It can uncover deeper insights about underlying motives, values, and opinions. It usually results in a free exchange of information and there is no social pressure to conform. This advantage is in comparison to the focus group. Lastly, as a result of probing, aka asking follow-up questions, it is possible for the interviewer to get at the real issues when the topic is complex. Interviews have several disadvantages. First, its cost is high. It takes a lot of time to conduct the interview and also take a lot of money because we need to pay each participant monetary incentive for their time. The quality and completeness of interviews largely depend on interviewers, and skilled interviewers are expensive and difficult to find. After taking this class, I hope everyone in this class will become a skilled interviewer. The results of interviews cannot be generalizable. It cannot be generalized to the larger population like other qualitative studies. Now let's move on to focus groups. Focus groups are a special kind of qualitative interviews. Basically, focus groups are group interviews. It usually involves 5 to 10 people in a relatively short period of time, 1 to 2 hours. Characteristics of focus groups. Group size is usually 5 to 10 people. Group composition is usually homogeneous. That means that participants usually possess certain characteristics. For example, they are all iPhone users, they are all Instagram users, or they all listen to a certain type of music, or all participants are of the same age group. The characteristics of participants are depending on your research question, and you need to pre-screen and select your participants. Physical setting is a relaxed, informal atmosphere. Time duration is usually 1 to 2 hours. Recording usually involves taking notes, audio recording, and or video recording of the focus group. Moderators requires the moderator to have observational, interpersonal, and communication skills. This photo shows the layout of a focus group room. There's usually a one-way mirror. Through the one-way mirror, your clients can sit behind the mirror to observe participants and listen to what they said. Here is a comparison between focus groups and interviews. A plus sign indicates a relative advantage over the other procedure, but a minus sign indicates a relative disadvantage. Focus group have advantage over interview in terms of group synergy and dynamics, because interviews usually involve only one participant and there is no group synergy or dynamics at all. Interviews have advantage over focus groups in terms of peer pressure and group influence, as interviews do not exert peer pressure or group influence on the participant. Focus groups have advantage over interviews in terms of client involvement, because the client can sit behind the one-way mirror to observe the focus group. Interviews have advantage over focus groups in terms of in-depth probing of individuals, as interviews are one-on-one conversations. Interviews have advantage over focus groups in terms of uncovering hidden motives, as interviews are one-on-one conversations and thus can uncover more information from this participant. Interviews have advantage over focus groups in terms of discussing sensitive topics, as participants are less likely to discuss sensitive topics in a group setting. Interviews have advantage over focus groups in terms of interviewing respondents who are competitors, as competitors will not see each other in a one-on-one interview. Interviews have advantage over focus groups in terms of scheduling of respondents, as it's easier to schedule an interview with one participant than with a group of participants. Focus groups have advantage over interviews in terms of the amount of information, as researchers can get more information from a group of participants, several participants in a focus group, than from one participant in a one interview. Focus groups have advantages over interviews in terms of cost per respondent, because researchers usually need to pay more for interviews, at least about $5 for each participant, while we can pay some food or drink for a group of 5 participants. There are several advantages of focus groups. First, it allows for obtaining in-depth information. It can capture deeper information by asking follow-up questions, which cannot be achieved with quantitative methods. Secondly, it allows for flexibility and follow-up questions. It is easy to follow up on points raised by participants, and it can also clear up confusing responses right away. Compared to one-on-one interviews, focus groups are more economical, as one-on-one interviews are very time-consuming. Focus group also allow for group interaction compared with one-on-one interviews. Focus group is more relaxed and less inhibited than interviews. And focus groups can encourage ideas and thoughts that individuals may not come up with or not mention during an interview. And this will provide more comprehensive understanding of the research topic. Several disadvantages of focus groups. First of all, it is still expensive. It is more expensive than some surveys and experiments for including the same number of participants, but focus groups are still cheaper than in-depth interviews. Secondly, it is time-consuming. Although we know it only takes about 1 or 2 hours to conduct one focus group, but planning the focus group, transcribing the focus group data, and analyzing the data actually take a lot of time. And sometimes it will take more time if we need to reach and select and invite special participants to our focus group. Another disadvantage of focus group is when we have aggressive participants. Some aggressive participants may dominate the focus group discussion, which may draw resentment of others and may have an adverse impact on group discussion. In that case, the moderator should gain control on the group discussion. In addition, results of focus groups, like other qualitative studies, cannot be generalizable.